Tom Blake wiped the grease from his hands as his cargo ship touched down on Station Crossroads. The landing had been rough, but that was normal for a vessel held together mostly by spare parts and stubbornness. He needed to sell his salvaged components quickly. The debt collector would not wait much longer, and Tom had no interest in finding out what happened to people who kept that particular creditor waiting. The station bustled with activity as Tom made his way through the main corridor. Traders from a dozen different species haggled over goods while maintenance workers rushed past with equipment. Tom kept his head down and his hand near his credit chip pouch. Station Crossroads sat at the edge of council territory, where the law became more of a suggestion than a rule. Tom found a buyer for his salvaged parts within an hour. The payment was less than he hoped but enough to clear his debt with a little left over. He pocketed the credits and decided to browse the lower markets for a new navigation computer. His current one had been glitching for weeks, and he could not afford to get lost in uncharted space. The lower markets were darker and more crowded than the main trading floor. Vendors shouted in multiple languages, advertising everything from weapons to medical supplies of questionable origin. Tom pushed through the crowd, ignoring the calls from sellers trying to catch his attention. He knew better than to make eye contact with anyone too eager. A narrow corridor caught his attention. A faded sign above it read, "Electronics Warehouse Sale." Tom hesitated for only a moment before ducking inside. If he could find a cheap navigation computer here, he would have extra credits for fuel and food. The corridor opened into a large chamber filled with shipping containers and equipment. The lighting was dim and Tom could barely make out the faces of the other shoppers moving between the stacks. A Torgathy vendor approached him immediately, his three eyes gleaming in the low light. "Human, you look for ship equipment, yes?" the vendor said in broken English. "I have best prices on station. Everything refurbished, everything working perfect." Tom nodded. "I need a navigation computer. Something reliable." The vendor's face split into what might have been a smile. "I have exactly what you need. Top quality AI companion unit. Very smart, helps with navigation, ship systems, even conversation on long flights. Normally costs 50,000 credits but today only 8,000. Special price for you." 8,000 credits was exactly what Tom had left after paying his debt. It seemed too good to be true, but the vendor was already pulling him toward a stack of containers. Tom's instincts told him to walk away, but the thought of having a functional AI system was tempting. He had been flying solo for 3 years, and the loneliness of space travel was starting to wear on him. The vendor stopped at a large gray container and slapped its side. "Inside here. Already programmed and ready. You take now, I give you carrying codes, very simple." Other vendors were watching them now. Tom felt pressure building around him as more aliens crowded closer, creating a wall between him and the exit. The Torgathy vendor was speaking faster, insisting the deal would not last long. Tom's hand moved to his credit chips almost automatically. "Fine," Tom said. "But if this does not work, I am coming back." The vendor laughed and snatched the credit chips from Tom's hand. He pressed a data card into Tom's palm and gestured at the container. "Container code is on card. You take now, go quick. Station security does not like when we block corridor." Tom activated the container's anti-grav units and pulled it toward the exit. The crowd parted quickly, and he found himself back in the main corridor before he had time to think about what just happened. Something felt wrong about the entire transaction, but Tom pushed the feeling aside. He needed to get back to his ship before someone decided to rob him. The walk back to the docking bay felt longer than usual. Tom kept glancing over his shoulder, certain he was being followed. The container floated behind him silently, its contents a mystery until he could get it aboard his ship and open it properly. Tom's ship, the Wanderer, was exactly where he left it in docking bay 17. The old cargo hauler looked worse than most ships in the bay, but it was his home. He pulled the container up the loading ramp and sealed the airlock behind him. Only when he was inside with the doors locked did he allow himself to relax. He dragged the container into the cargo hold and stared at it for a long moment. The excitement of a new AI system was fading, replaced by the nagging certainty that he had made a terrible mistake. Tom entered the unlock code from the data card, and the container's seal hissed open. Inside was not an AI unit. A young female alien lay curled on her side, unconscious or sleeping. Her skin was a pale silver-blue color that seemed to shimmer in the cargo hold's lights. She wore simple gray clothing and had a metal collar around her neck with blinking lights. Tom's stomach dropped as realization hit him like a physical blow. He had not bought an AI companion. He had bought a person. Tom stumbled backward, his mind racing. This was a Velari, he was certain. He had seen their species before at trading stations, though never up close. They were known for their empathic abilities and their strictly neutral stance in galactic politics. What was one doing in a shipping container on station crossroads? The answer came immediately and made Tom feel sick. Slave traders. He had accidentally bought this woman from slave traders. Tom's hands shook as he knelt beside the container. He had to help her, but he had no idea how. The collar around her neck was clearly some kind of control device. Tom examined it carefully, looking for a release mechanism. His fingers found a small panel on the side, and he pried it open with a tool from his belt. Inside were 3 wires connected to a simple locking mechanism. Tom cut through them carefully and the collar fell away with a soft click. The woman stirred immediately, her eyes fluttering open. They were a deep violet color that seemed to look right through him. She scrambled away from Tom, pressing herself against the far wall of the container. Her breathing was rapid and panicked. Tom raised his hands slowly, trying to appear non-threatening. "It is okay," Tom said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you. I did not know. I thought I was buying equipment. I am so sorry." The woman stared at him with wide eyes. She said something in a language Tom did not understand. Her voice was hoarse, as if she had not spoken in a long time. Tom stood slowly and backed away from the container. He moved to his small galley and grabbed a water bottle and a ration bar. When he returned, the woman was still pressed against the wall, watching his every movement. Tom set the food and water on the floor near the container and stepped back again. "You must be hungry. Please take it. I am going to figure out how to get you home." The woman looked at the offerings and then back at Tom. Slowly, carefully, she reached out and took the water. She drank it in desperate gulps, and Tom realized she must have been in that container for hours, maybe longer. Before Tom could say anything else, his ship's communication system chimed loudly. A message scrolled across the screen near the cargo hold entrance. Tom's blood ran cold as he read it. "Attention all ships. Station security is conducting mandatory scans of all vessels for contraband and trafficking victims. All ships are grounded until scans are complete. Failure to comply will result in immediate arrest." Tom looked at the Velari woman and then at the message. If security found her on his ship, they would arrest him for human trafficking regardless of whether he knew what he was buying. The penalties for that crime were severe. He would spend the rest of his life in prison. The woman must have sensed his panic through her empathic abilities. She stood on shaky legs and pointed at herself, then at Tom, then at the ship's controls. Her meaning was clear even without words. They needed to run. Together. Tom's hands flew across the control panel as alarms blared throughout the Wanderer. The station's docking clamps were still engaged, and security teams were already moving toward the lower bays. He had maybe 2 minutes before they reached docking bay 17. The Velari woman stood behind his chair, gripping the back of it for support. She was still weak, but her violet eyes were alert and focused. Tom felt her watching him as he worked, and something about her presence was strangely calming despite the chaos around them. "Hold on to something," Tom said without looking back. "This is going to be rough." He overrode the docking clamps with an emergency release code that would flag his ship immediately. The Wanderer shuddered as the clamps disengaged, and Tom fired the engines before the station could lock them down again. The cargo hauler lurched forward, scraping against the docking bay wall as it pushed toward the exit. Station security's weapons lit up the space behind them, but Tom was already diving the ship toward the nearest jump point. The Wanderer was not built for speed, but Tom knew how to squeeze every bit of power from her engines. He plotted a jump to an uncharted region 3 sectors away and engaged the drive without waiting for proper calculations. The ship jumped and stars stretched into lines around them. The Velari woman collapsed into the co-pilot's seat, breathing hard. Tom finally allowed himself to look at her properly. She was younger than he first thought, maybe equivalent to a human in her mid-20s. Her silver-blue skin was marked with bruises, and her gray clothing was torn in places. "My name is Tom," he said, pointing to himself. "Tom Blake." The woman watched him for a moment, then touched her chest. "Kira." Her voice was still rough, but the single word was clear. Tom nodded. "Kira. Okay. Do you understand me? Do you speak English?" Kira tilted her head, considering. She held up her hand with her thumb and forefinger close together. "A little. A little. That is good. That is a start." Tom checked their position and sighed with relief. They had made it out of council space, but they were far from safe. "I am going to take you home. To your people. Where is your home world?" Kira's expression changed. She looked away from Tom and spoke softly in her own language. Even without understanding the words, Tom could hear the sadness in her voice. Over the next several hours they communicated through gestures, simple words, and the ship's basic translation program. Kira explained slowly that she had been captured 6 months ago when raiders attacked a Villari colony transport. She had been sold 3 times before ending up on Station Crossroads. Her home world was called Valor Prime, and it was 3 weeks away through multiple jump points. Tom plotted the route and frowned. Every single jump point to Villari space went through heavily monitored Council territory. His ship's signature would be flagged the moment he entered those systems. They would be arrested before they got close to her home. "We will find another way," Tom said. "Through uncharted space. It will take longer, but it is safer." Kira nodded, but Tom noticed she would not meet his eyes. Something was bothering her, but he could not figure out what. He decided to give her time. She had been through enough already. They traveled for 3 days through empty space before the first problem appeared. The ship's life support system started failing, unable to handle the strain of supporting 2 people when it had been calibrated for 1. The air grew stale and warning lights flashed across Tom's console. Tom crawled into the maintenance shaft with his tools while Kira watched from above. The problem was obvious once he found it. The filtration unit's power coupling had burned out, and he had no replacement parts. Tom stared at the damaged component for a long moment, then started pulling other pieces from nearby systems. "What are you doing?" Kira asked, her English improving each day. "Improvising," Tom said. He stripped wires from a secondary communications array and used them to bypass the damaged coupling. Then he rerouted power from the entertainment system through the filtration unit. It was not elegant and it would not last forever, but it would keep them breathing. Tom climbed out of the shaft 30 minutes later, covered in grease and coolant. The air quality indicator slowly shifted from red back to yellow. Kira stared at him with an expression Tom could not read. "Your people would not do this?" Tom asked, wiping his hands on a rag. Kira shook her head. "We would wait for correct parts. We would follow proper procedure. What you did is dangerous. It could fail." "But it did not fail," Tom said with a tired smile. "And we are still breathing." Kira studied him silently for a moment. "Humans are strange." They stopped at an uninhabited moon to gather ice for the ship's water recycler. Tom suited up and headed outside, but Kira insisted on coming with him despite her weakness. They worked together in silence, filling containers with ice chunks from the moon's surface. Tom noticed Kira moving slower than before. When they returned to the ship, he split his meal ration in half and gave her the larger portion. Kira protested, but Tom insisted. "You need to get your strength back," Tom said. "I am used to running on empty." "Why do you do this?" Kira asked suddenly. "You risk your freedom, your life for someone you do not know. This makes no sense." Tom shrugged. "It is the right thing to do. You did not ask to be captured. You did not deserve what happened to you. If I can help fix even a small part of that, then I should." Kira was quiet for a long time. "Your species acts against self-interest for moral reasons. This is not common in the galaxy." "Maybe it should be," Tom said. That night, as Tom tried to sleep in his quarters, he found Kira sitting in the cockpit staring at the stars. She did not sleep much, he had noticed. When he asked if she was okay, she simply said she felt safer staying awake. Tom understood that feeling better than he wanted to admit. They fell into a routine over the following days. Tom taught Kira more English and she taught him basic words in her language. She began staying in the cockpit during his work shifts, and Tom found himself talking to her about his years as a cargo hauler. He told her about the loneliness of space travel, the freedom of not belonging anywhere, and the quiet desperation of people living on the edges of civilization. Kira listened to everything, and Tom realized she was reading his emotions through her empathic abilities. It should have felt invasive, but somehow it did not. It felt like being truly understood for the first time in years. On the 7th day, Tom's worst fear came true. A ship appeared on his sensors, closing fast from behind. The configuration matched a bounty hunter vessel. Someone had tracked them despite all his precautions. Tom pushed the Wanderer's engines to maximum, but the hunter was faster. They dove into a nearby asteroid field, and Tom began the most dangerous flying of his life. He threaded the ship between spinning rocks, using gravity assists and momentum to stay ahead of their pursuer. Kira gripped her seat, her face pale, but she did not cry out even when debris scraped against their hull. Tom spotted a decaying orbital ring around a dead planet and made a split-second decision. He aimed the Wanderer directly at a gap in the ring barely wider than their ship. The hunter hesitated, unwilling to risk the maneuver. Tom did not hesitate. He flew through the gap at full speed, using reflexes and instinct more than instruments. They emerged on the other side intact. The hunter turned away and Tom slumped in his chair, exhausted. Kira was staring at him with wide eyes. "How did you do that?" she whispered. "I did not think about it," Tom admitted. "I just did it." Kira reached out slowly and touched his shoulder. Through her empathic sense, Tom felt her amazement and something else. Respect maybe. Or the beginning of trust. That evening, Kira asked Tom to sit with her in the cargo hold. She spoke slowly, carefully choosing her English words. What she said changed everything. "I cannot go home," Kira told him. "My people have strict contamination protocols. Anyone who spends extended time with other species must undergo years of quarantine and reconditioning. After 6 months with slavers and now weeks with you, they would not accept me back. I would be an outsider forever in my own culture." Tom felt like the floor had dropped away beneath him. "But I promise to take you home." "You cannot take me somewhere that no longer exists for me," Kira said sadly. Then her expression changed, becoming more determined. "I want to stay with you." "That is impossible," Tom said immediately. "I am a wanted man now. Humans and Villari do not live together. You need stability, safety, a real home." "I need those things less than you think," Kira said. "You are lonely. I sense it every day. You need a companion as much as I need protection. I can help you. My empathic abilities let me read people's intentions. I can tell when traitors are lying, when danger is coming, when someone can be trusted. Together we could be successful." Tom wanted to refuse. He wanted to find some other solution. But as he looked at Kira's determined face, he realized she was right. They had worked well together these past days. And the loneliness that had haunted him for years felt lighter when she was nearby. "Temporarily," Tom said finally. "You can stay temporarily while we figure out something permanent." Kira smiled slightly, and Tom felt through their growing connection that she knew the truth. He had already decided to let her stay. He just needed time to admit it to himself. 2 days later, they reached a neutral trading post in the frontier territories. Tom needed to sell some cargo to buy supplies. Kira stayed close to him as they walked through the market, and when traders approached with deals, she would touch Tom's arm and shake her head or nod. Every time she shook her head, Tom discovered the trader had been planning to cheat him. Every time she nodded, the deal was honest. By the end of the day, Tom had made 3 times his usual profit. As they walked back to the Wanderer, he finally spoke the words that had been building inside him. "Maybe this partnership is not so temporary after all." Kira looked up at him and smiled. For the first time since he found her, she looked genuinely happy. Tom smiled back, and for the first time in years he did not feel alone. 6 weeks passed, and Tom and Kira had settled into a rhythm that felt natural, almost effortless. The Wanderer moved from station to station along the frontier routes, carrying legal cargo and asking no questions about what traders really wanted transported. Tom handled the flying and the negotiations, while Kira stood quietly beside him, her empathic senses reading every person they encountered. Their success was remarkable. Tom's profits had tripled since Kira joined him, and they had enough credits now to make real repairs to the ship. The Wanderer's engines ran smoother, the life support no longer flickered, and they even had decent food stores. More importantly, the loneliness that had weighed on Tom for years had lifted. He caught himself humming old songs while he worked, and Kira had started laughing at his terrible jokes. They had developed an unspoken language between them. When Kira touched his left arm, it meant the person they were dealing with was honest. A touch on his right arm meant danger or deception. A hand on his shoulder meant they should leave immediately. Tom had learned to read her subtle expressions too, the slight widening of her violet eyes when she sensed strong emotions, the way she tilted her head when someone's feelings confused her. At Haven's Rest, a small frontier colony built into an asteroid, they were unloading a shipment of medical supplies when Kira suddenly grabbed Tom's shoulder. Her grip was tight, almost painful. "What is wrong?" Tom asked, immediately alert. "Someone is here for us," Kira whispered. Someone with very focused intent. Hunting intent. Tom looked around the busy marketplace but saw nothing unusual. Traders moved between stalls, colonists haggled over prices, and security officers patrolled in pairs. Everything seemed normal. "Are you certain?" Tom asked. Kira nodded, her face pale. "He is close. Very close. And he is thinking about me." Tom's hand moved to the small blaster on his hip. "We need to get back to the ship." They started walking quickly toward the docking area, but a figure stepped out from behind a cargo container, blocking their path. He was Krellian, tall and powerfully built, with dark scaled skin and eyes that looked like polished stone. He wore armor that had seen real combat, and 3 weapons were visible on his belt. "Tom Blake," the Krellian said in perfect English. "And the Velari merchandise. You have led me on quite a chase." Tom stepped in front of Kira. "She is not merchandise. She is a person and she is free." The Krellian smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "My name is Dax Morin. I am a licensed recovery agent, and I have legal documentation that says otherwise." He pulled a data pad from his belt and held it up. The screen showed an official council recovery order with Kira's image and identification codes. "The Velari female was stolen property. I am authorized to retrieve her and return her to her legal owners." A crowd was gathering now, curious colonists stopping to watch the confrontation. Tom noticed 2 local security officers approaching, but they kept their distance. This was frontier territory where council law was complicated and often ignored. "Those owners were slavers," Tom said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "She was kidnapped from her people and sold illegally. That document means nothing." Dax shrugged. "Perhaps. But it is official and it gives me legal authority here. The colony security will not interfere." He looked past Tom at Kira. "Come peacefully and your human friend can walk away. Resist and I will take you both." Kira pressed closer to Tom's back. Through their connection, Tom felt her fear, but also her trust in him. She believed he would protect her. Tom could not let her down. "I have a counteroffer," Tom said. "Under frontier settlement law, disputes can be resolved through trial by combat. I challenge you, Dax Morin. If I win, you destroy that recovery order and leave. If you win, you can take her." The crowd murmured with interest. Trial by combat was an old tradition in the frontier colonies, a holdover from the early days when official law enforcement was scarce. It was still recognized as legal, though rarely invoked. Dax's smile widened. "You want to fight me? Human, I am twice your size and trained in 7 combat styles. I have killed beings far more dangerous than you." "Then you should have no problem accepting," Tom said. Dax laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the asteroid walls. "Very well. I accept your challenge. When you are broken and bleeding, perhaps the Velari will come more willingly." The security officers cleared a space in the marketplace. Word spread quickly and more colonists gathered to watch. Frontier settlements loved spectacles, and a trial by combat was rare entertainment. Tom removed his jacket and checked his weapons. He was allowed 1 blade and no firearms. Dax would have the same restrictions. Kira gripped Tom's arm. "You cannot do this. He will kill you." "Maybe," Tom admitted. "But I am not letting him take you. Not without a fight." "Why?" Kira asked desperately. "Why would you risk this for me?" Tom looked at her and smiled. "Because you are crew. And we do not abandon crew." The fight began with a formal declaration from the security chief. Dax moved first, closing the distance between them with frightening speed. His first punch caught Tom in the ribs and Tom felt something crack. He stumbled backward, barely dodging a follow-up strike that would have taken his head off. The crowd roared. Dax was clearly the favorite. Tom tried to create distance, but Dax was relentless. Another hit landed on Tom's shoulder, numbing his left arm. A kick to his leg sent him sprawling to the ground. Dax stood over him, preparing to end the fight. But Tom rolled away at the last second and came up swinging. His blade caught Dax across the arm, drawing first blood. It was a minor wound, but it proved Tom could hurt him. Dax's expression changed from amusement to irritation. He attacked more aggressively and Tom could only defend, taking hit after hit. Blood ran from a cut above Tom's eye, and his breathing was ragged. Every instinct told him to stay down, to surrender, to stop the pain. Tom thought about Kira watching from the crowd. He thought about the 6 months she had spent in captivity. He thought about the fear in her eyes when Dax appeared. And he got back up. Dax hit him again and Tom fell. He got up. Another hit, another fall. Tom stood again. The crowd had gone quiet now, watching something they had not expected. The human kept getting up. "Stay down," Dax growled. "You cannot win this." "I do not need to win," Tom said through broken teeth. "I just need to not quit." Tom used the environment around him. He threw sand from a planter into Dax's eyes. He grabbed a piece of broken equipment and used it as a shield. He made Dax chase him through the marketplace, forcing the larger fighter to waste energy. Tom's human endurance, built from millions of years of persistence hunting, kept him moving even as pain screamed through his body. Dax was stronger and faster, but Tom was stubborn. He absorbed damage that should have ended the fight and kept coming back. He fell 7 times and stood 8. He turned the fight into a battle of wills rather than strength. 20 minutes into the fight, Dax was breathing hard. His armor was torn and blood leaked from a dozen small cuts Tom had managed to land. The Krellian's attacks were slower now, less precise. He had expected an easy victory, not this grinding test of endurance. Tom was in worse shape, barely able to see through the blood and swelling. But he was still standing, still moving, still fighting. The end came suddenly. Dax overcommit to a powerful strike and Tom ducked under it. Using the last of his strength, Tom drove his blade into the gap between Dax's armor plates. The Krellian roared and fell to one knee. Tom stood over him, blade at Dax's throat. Yield. Dax looked up at the battered human who should have been dead. Respect flickered in his stone eyes. I yield. The crowd erupted in cheers. The security chief declared Tom the victor, and Frontier Law was satisfied. Dax slowly stood, retrieved his data pad, and deleted the recovery order in front of everyone. He looked at Tom one last time. I have hunted for 15 years, Dax said quietly. I have never seen anything like what you just did. Your species is either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Both, Tom said with a bloody smile. Mostly stupid. Dax nodded and walked away. The crowd parted for him and he disappeared into the station without looking back. Tom's legs gave out and he collapsed. Kira was there immediately, supporting him, her hands gentle as she examined his injuries. Tears ran down her silver-blue face. You are insane, she said. You almost died. But I did not, Tom said. And you are free. Really free now. Other colonists approached, offering medical supplies and congratulations. Word of Tom's victory would spread through the frontier territories. The human who would not quit. The man who fought for his partner's freedom against impossible odds. As Kira helped Tom back to the Wanderer, she spoke softly. No one from my world would have done this. We calculate odds and surrender when defeat is certain. We do not understand this human stubbornness. Tom leaned on her heavily, exhausted and in pain but strangely happy. That is because you are sensible. We are not. Sometimes being stubborn and stupid is exactly what you need. That night, as Kira bandaged Tom's wounds in the ship's medical bay, she made a decision. She would stay with this impossible human who fought when he should have run, who got up when he should have stayed down, who risked everything for someone he barely knew. She would stay because she had finally found something she had never expected to find. She had found someone who valued her more than his own safety. She had found a true partner. She had found home. Tom spent 5 days recovering from his injuries before he could walk without limping. Kira stayed by his side the entire time, changing bandages and forcing him to rest despite his protests. The Wanderer remained docked at Haven's Rest while Tom healed, and during that time, something unexpected began to happen. People started visiting their ship. The first was a young Saltharian male who appeared at their airlock 3 days after the fight. His species had 4 arms and pale green skin, and he spoke nervously in broken English. Kira listened to his story through her empathic abilities and translated what he could not express in words. He had escaped from a mining operation where traffickers forced him to work. He had nowhere to go. His family believed he was dead, and returning home would only put them in danger from the criminals who owned his labor contracts. He had heard about Tom and Kira, about how they had defeated a hunter and freed a slave. He wanted to know if they could help him disappear into the frontier. Tom looked at the frightened young alien and then at Kira. She nodded slightly, her expression gentle. Tom sighed and opened the airlock wider. Come in. Let us see what we can do. They helped the Saltharian find work on a mining colony 3 systems away, one that asked no questions about identification papers. Tom used his contacts in the Frontier Trade Network to create a new identity for him. It was not legal by council standards, but in the frontier territories, survival mattered more than paperwork. 2 days later, 3 more trafficking victims appeared. Then 5 more. Word was spreading faster than Tom had anticipated. The human who fought for freedom was becoming a legend in the underground networks where desperate people traded information. Tom and Kira fell into a new routine. Kira used her empathic abilities to verify each person's story, making sure they were legitimate victims and not criminals trying to exploit their reputation. Tom handled the logistics, finding safe places for people to start new lives, creating documentation and arranging transport. The Wanderer became a way station for the displaced and desperate. After 2 weeks, they had helped 23 individuals find new lives. Tom's credit reserves were running low from all the travel and bribes, but he could not turn people away. Kira never suggested they stop, though Tom caught her watching him with concern when he thought she was not looking. On the 16th day, a different kind of visitor arrived. She was human, middle-aged, with sharp eyes and expensive clothing that seemed out of place in the rough frontier colony. She introduced herself as Ambassador Sarah Wells, a council investigator specializing in trafficking operations. Tom's hand moved toward his weapon, but Kira touched his arm. The left arm. Trust. Please sit, Tom said warily, gesturing to the small table in their common area. Though I should warn you, if you are here to arrest us, it will not go easily. Sarah smiled and sat down. I am not here to arrest you, Tom Blake. I am here to offer you an opportunity. She pulled out a data pad and showed them files. Lists of names, locations, and trafficking networks. The information was detailed and clearly came from official council intelligence sources. The council has been aware of your activities for several weeks, Sarah said. We have been watching you help people that our official channels have failed. You have accomplished more in 2 weeks than our task forces managed in 6 months. So you want us to stop? Tom said flatly. No, Sarah said. I want you to expand. She explained that the council's anti-trafficking efforts were hampered by politics and bureaucracy. Official investigators could not operate in frontier territories without starting diplomatic incidents. They could not create false identifications or bribe officials. They had to follow rules that the traffickers ignored. But you do not have those limitations, Sarah continued. You operate in the gray areas where we cannot reach. And people trust you because you are one of them, not council bureaucrats who abandon them. What exactly are you offering? Kira asked quietly. Sarah looked at her with respect. Legal protection. Resources. Access to council intelligence networks. Safe houses we cannot officially acknowledge but can quietly support. Most importantly, immunity from prosecution for you and everyone you help. Tom leaned back in his chair thinking. And in exchange? You formalize your operation. You report major trafficking networks to us. You work with our guidelines to ensure the people you help are legitimate victims, not criminals hiding from justice. And you allow us to occasionally request your assistance on specific cases. So we become your unofficial agents, Tom said. We take the risks while you maintain political cover. Sarah did not flinch. Yes, that is exactly what I am proposing. It is not fair and it is not ideal. But it would allow you to help far more people than you can on your own. Tom looked at Kira. Through their connection, he felt her carefully considering the offer, weighing the benefits against the risks. She met his eyes and spoke in her own language, words she had taught him over the past weeks. The choice is yours, partner. Tom turned back to Sarah. We need to discuss this privately. Can you give us until tomorrow? Sarah nodded and stood. Of course. I am staying at the Colony Administration building. Contact me when you decide. She paused at the airlock. For what it is worth, I truly believe this could save lives. Many lives. After she left, Tom and Kira sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Tom spoke. What do you think? I think she is sincere, Kira said. Her emotions are genuine. She truly wants to stop the trafficking networks. She paused. But I also think working with the council will change everything. We will lose some of our freedom. We will have people watching us, judging our decisions. But we could help more people, Tom said. With their resources and our methods, we could actually make a real difference. They talked late into the night, discussing possibilities and concerns. Tom worried about losing their independence. Kira worried about the danger of antagonizing larger criminal organizations. But they both kept returning to the same conclusion. They had the chance to do something meaningful, something bigger than themselves. The next morning, they contacted Sarah and agreed to her proposal with specific conditions. They would maintain operational independence, choosing which cases to accept. They would answer only to Sarah, not the council bureaucracy. And they could refuse any operation that violated their principles. Sarah agreed to all their terms without hesitation, as if she had expected them. Over the following weeks, Tom and Kira upgraded the Wanderer with equipment Sarah provided through untraceable channels. Their ship gained better sensors, encrypted communication systems, and defensive weapons. More importantly, they gained access to intelligence that let them target trafficking operations before victims were sold. Their network grew rapidly. Other freed victims began helping them, creating a web of contacts across the frontier territories. Former slaves became guides, translators, and safe house operators. The underground railroad that Tom and Kira had accidentally created became something more organized and effective. 3 months after Sarah's first visit, they had helped over 200 people find freedom and new lives. Criminal syndicates had noticed, and Tom and Kira received multiple death threats. but their reputation also protected them. Attacking the humans who fought for freedom would spark retaliation from grateful victims throughout the frontier. One evening, as they traveled between systems, Kira was unusually quiet. Tom noticed she kept looking at him and then away, as if building courage to say something. "What is wrong?" Tom asked finally. Kira was silent for a moment. Then she spoke carefully. "I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you months ago." Tom's stomach tightened. "Go ahead." 2 months ago, I was contacted by a Velari community in the outer colonies," Kira said softly. "They are exiles like me, people who left our home world for various reasons. They do not follow the contamination protocols. They would have accepted me without question." Tom felt something cold settle in his chest. "Why did you not go to them?" "Because I did not want to leave you," Kira said simply. She looked at him directly now, her violet eyes intense. "I could have left. I could have found safety and community with my own people. But I chose to stay." "Why?" Tom asked, though part of him was afraid of the answer. Kira stood and walked closer to him. "Because my culture values logic and efficiency above all else. We make practical decisions. We calculate the best outcomes. But you taught me something different. You taught me that some things are worth fighting for even when the odds are against you. You showed me what it means to truly partner with someone, to trust completely, to stand beside each other no matter what comes." She reached out and touched his shoulder, their signal for deep connection. "My people would have given me safety, but you gave me something more important. You gave me purpose. You valued me not for what I could offer but for who I am. You risked your life for my freedom when you had no reason to care." Tom felt emotion rising in his throat. "You have given me just as much. Before you, I was just drifting through space, alone, going through motions. You gave me a reason to be better, to do something meaningful." "Then we are agreed," Kira said with a slight smile. "We stay together. We continue this work. Partners." "Partners?" Tom echoed. That night, Tom updated their operations status report for Sarah. He described their recent successes and upcoming missions. At the end of the report, he added a note about Kira's revelation, explaining that she had chosen to stay despite having other options. Sarah's response came the next morning. It was brief but significant. "Your partnership is the foundation of everything you have built. The Council recognizes this. Kira is now registered as your official partner and co-director of operations. Her legal status is secure." Tom showed the message to Kira. She read it twice, then looked at him with an expression he had learned to recognize as happiness. "We have built something real," she said. "Something that matters." Tom nodded. "And we are just getting started." They sat together in the cockpit, watching stars stream past as the Wanderer jumped toward their next mission. Two unlikely partners who had found each other by accident and chosen each other by design. A human cargo hauler who would not give up and a Velari empath who refused to leave his side. Together they were changing the frontier, one freed life at a time. And neither of them would have it any other way. 1 year after Tom accidentally bought Kira from a black market dealer, the Wanderer docked at a newly constructed station called Haven Point. The station floated in neutral space, officially registered as a trading hub but secretly serving as the headquarters for the Haven Initiative. Tom and Kira had come a long way from running scared through uncharted space. The station's main hall bustled with activity. Former trafficking victims worked as administrators, counselors, and security personnel. Species from across the galaxy moved through the corridors, all of them people who had found second chances through Tom and Kira's network. The walls displayed a simple logo, 2 hands clasped together, one human and one alien with the words, "The Haven Initiative," beneath. Tom stood in the operations center, reviewing reports on a large display screen. His hair had grown longer, and a scar above his left eye remained from his fight with Dax Morin. He looked older but more settled, as if he had finally found where he belonged. Kira entered the room carrying 2 cups of coffee, a human habit she had adopted over the past year. She had changed too. Her movements were more confident, and she wore practical work clothing instead of the gray rags Tom had first found her in. She handed Tom one of the cups and looked at the screen over his shoulder. "The Council wants us to investigate a trafficking operation near the Kelter system," Tom said. "Sarah sent the intelligence files this morning. Looks like they are holding about 40 people in a hidden facility on one of the moons." Kira studied the data, her empathic senses already reaching out to analyze the emotional signatures in the intercepted communications. "The guards are nervous. Sloppy. They know something is wrong with their operation but do not know what. This will be easier than the last mission." "You said that about the last mission," Tom reminded her. And I ended up hanging from a cargo net for 3 hours. That was your fault for not waiting for my signal, Kira said with a slight smile. I told you the warehouse was still occupied. You touched my right arm. That means danger. No, I touched your right shoulder. Right arm means danger. Right shoulder means wait. We have been over this. Tom sighed dramatically. Your signal system is too complicated. We need something simpler. My signal system is perfectly clear. You just do not pay attention. Kira moved to another console and began pulling up star charts. If we leave within the hour, we can reach Kelter system in 2 days. That gives us time to scout the facility before the guards rotate shifts. They worked together in comfortable silence, planning the operation with practiced efficiency. Over the past year, they had rescued more than 500 people from trafficking operations across the frontier. Their methods had been refined through experience. Tom handled the direct action and improvisation, while Kira managed intelligence gathering and emotional manipulation. Together they were more effective than any official council task force. A young Dracian female named Yara entered the operations center. She had been one of their earliest rescues and now served as their communications coordinator. Ambassador Wells is on the secure channel. She says it is urgent. Tom activated the communication system, and Sarah's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired but pleased. Tom, Kira, I have news, Sarah said. The Council has officially recognized the Haven Initiative as a humanitarian organization. You now have diplomatic status in Council territories. That means legal protection, official funding, and access to resources we could only provide quietly before. Tom and Kira exchanged glances. This was bigger than they had expected. What is the catch? Tom asked suspiciously. Sarah smiled. No catch. Your work has saved more lives in 1 year than our official programs saved in 10. The Council wants to support you properly instead of pretending you do not exist. You have proven that your methods work. We still maintain operational independence? Kira asked. Completely. The agreement includes all the conditions you originally requested. You choose your missions, you answer only to me, and you can refuse any operation. The only difference is now you can operate openly instead of hiding in the shadows. After the call ended, Tom and Kira stood quietly in the operations center. The weight of what they had built settled over them. What had started as one man trying to help one woman had grown into something that changed lives across the galaxy. We did it, Tom said softly. We actually did it. Kira nodded. We built something permanent. Something that will continue even after we are gone. They spent the rest of the day preparing for the Kelter mission, but Tom noticed Kira was distracted. She kept looking at him with an expression he could not quite read. Finally, during their pre-flight checks on the Wanderer, she spoke. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you had not accidentally bought me? Kira asked quietly. Tom paused his work on the navigation console. Sometimes. I would probably still be hauling cargo alone, barely making enough credits to keep flying. Lonely and going nowhere. I would be dead, Kira said simply. Or still enslaved. Either way, I would not have this life, this purpose. Tom turned to face her. Where is this coming from? Kira moved closer to him, her violet eyes serious. I was thinking today about the concept of home. For most of my life, home meant my birth world, my biological family, my culture. But I cannot return to any of those things. They are lost to me forever. Kira? Let me finish, she said gently. I realize today that I do not mourn those losses anymore. Because I found something better. I found a home that is not a place. I found a family that is not blood relation. I found belonging with someone who values me for who I choose to be, not what I was born as. Tom felt emotion rising in his chest. You are talking about us. About this partnership. I am talking about you, Kira corrected. You are my home, Tom Blake. This work we do, the people we help, the life we have built together. That is home. Not some planet or building or cultural tradition. Just us, working side by side, fighting for what matters. Tom was quiet for a long moment, then he smiled. You know, I was going to say something similar. I spent years drifting through space, never staying anywhere long enough to put down roots. I told myself I liked the freedom, but really I was just afraid of getting attached to anything. Afraid of losing it. He reached out and took Kira's hand, a gesture that had become natural between them. But you changed that. You showed me that home is not about places or things. It is about finding someone who understands you completely, who stands beside you no matter what comes, who makes you want to be better than you are. Kira squeezed his hand. So we are agreed. We are home for each other. Always have been, Tom said. From the moment you refused to leave my side. They stood together in the cockpit, hands clasped, two unlikely partners who had found exactly what they needed in each other. The intercom chimed, breaking the moment. Yara's voice came through the speakers. Tom, Kira, we have incoming traffic. 3 ships requesting docking permission. All of them are carrying freed trafficking victims who heard about Haven Point and want to help with our work. Tom and Kira looked at each other and laughed. Their work was never done, but they would not want it any other way. Tell them to dock at bays 5 through 7, Tom said into the intercom. We will meet them personally. As they prepared to greet the new arrivals, their old dynamic reasserted itself. Kira started reviewing the psychological profiles of the incoming individuals while Tom checked the security protocols. They moved around each other with practiced ease, anticipating needs before they were spoken. You are hovering again, Kira said without looking up from her data pad. I can feel your nervous energy from here. I'm not hovering. I am being thorough. You checked those security protocols 3 times already? You are nervous about the Kelter mission tomorrow. Tom scowled. Your empathic abilities are annoying sometimes. You love my empathic abilities. They are useful, Tom admitted. But still annoying. Kira smiled and continued her work. This was their rhythm now, the comfortable bickering of people who knew each other completely. They argued about mission planning, about whose turn it was to handle administrative duties, about Tom's terrible coffee-making skills and Kira's habit of rearranging the ship's storage compartments. But beneath the bickering was absolute trust and affection. They had seen each other at their worst and their best. They had saved each other's lives dozens of times. They had built something meaningful together from nothing but determination and hope. That evening, after greeting the new arrivals and getting them settled, Tom and Kira returned to the Wanderer. The ship had been upgraded significantly over the year, but they kept the same small crew quarters they had always used. The Wanderer was still home, even with Haven Point Station available. They sat together in the cockpit, reviewing the final details of tomorrow's mission to Kelter. The operation would be dangerous, requiring them to infiltrate a heavily guarded facility and extract 40 people without raising alarms. It was exactly the kind of impossible task they had tackled dozens of times before. Ready? Tom asked as he prepared the departure sequence. Always, Kira replied, settling into the co-pilot seat she had claimed as her own. The Wanderer undocked from Haven Point and turned toward open space. Behind them, the station's lights glowed in the darkness, a beacon of hope for the desperate and displaced. Ahead of them lay another mission, another chance to make a difference. Tom engaged the engines and Kira pulled up the navigation charts. They worked in perfect synchronization, 2 halves of a whole that had been forged through shared struggle and mutual respect. As they prepared to jump to hyperspace, Kira reached over and touched Tom's shoulder. Their signal for deep connection, for trust, for partnership. Tom placed his hand over hers and smiled. Here we go again, he said. Together, Kira confirmed. The Wanderer jumped, stars stretching into lines around them as they raced toward their next mission. A human cargo hauler who had stumbled into heroism and a Velari empath who refused to leave his side. They had found home in the most unexpected place, in each other. And as they traveled through the darkness of space toward whatever challenges awaited them, they both understood the truth that had taken them a year to fully realize. The best things in life are not the ones you plan for or search for. They are the ones that find you by accident and then refuse to let go. They are the ones worth fighting for, worth building a life around, worth calling home. Together, Tom and Kira had found exactly that. And they would never let it go.